remember to buy a copy of your favorite books from the Cheeky Merchant. If we don't have it, we'll source it for you, but we'll definitely find the book for you.
Hello, Cheeky Natives. Welcome to another episode of the Cheeky Natives. How you doing, boo?
Thank you. It's always good to be in your company because I know we're about to get down. How are you doing? How's the new journey?
Guys, sleep deprivation is real, but it's okay. So besides waking up every 2 to 3 hours at night, we've had a good run. I've got 202. So after that level of crazy, anything is possible, Shin. It's okay. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Amen.
That's the vibe.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
I'm really excited to speak about this book. The last time we had a very interesting conversation with the author, and I believe we're going to have another interesting conversation. Maybe today we might fight a little, like it won't be the same as the last time we were all laughing.
Oh, we're not going to fight a little. We're going to fight a lot.
I'm going to be on top of Damilare today.
And with that, Letokonola has revealed our guest for today's episode. We'd like to welcome Damilare Kuku, who has worked as a radio presenter, a scriptwriter, a film producer, Nollywood actress and director. So multi-hyphenate creative. Her first book, the story collection, Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad, was a runaway bestseller in Nigeria, in South Africa, forever. Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow is Kuku's first novel. Welcome to the Cheeky Nate.
Again.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here to hang out with you guys.
Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad was a really successful short story collection. And we were introduced to you as an author, as a short story writer. And then soon thereafter, Only Big Bums Matter Tomorrow came out. And it's your debut novel, but also your sophomore title. Was there any pressure with the success of Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad? Did you feel like you had to show up in this debut novel?
Yes, I thrive under pressure. I love it. Pressure is my best friend. But I don't let it get to me where you're like, oh, you have to do this, because that's not my style. But I did know that with Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad and the way the fans kept asking for a new book, I had to bring it in some way. So yeah, there was pressure on myself as well, because I put myself under a lot of pressure. I'm just used to pressure because of the industries I've worked in. So pressure all the way.
So I'm interested about the process, right? I think writing short stories is incredibly different to writing a long form novel, right? So the question is twofold. Firstly, how did you change your process in terms of writing from the first one to this one? But also, you've had a wildly successful debut, and I'm curious about what the lessons from writing your first book you carried into this one.
Okay, for first, I want to say something. Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow is a bestseller in a lot of countries, but Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow sold out in one day in Nigeria and Ghana. Let's be clear. My baby right now is Bumbum, and Bumbum is doing amazing in Nigeria and Ghana. We just needed to do amazing as well in South Africa and other countries. And it's doing really great too in the UK and doing well in the US. I feel like with Bumbum, what had happened was I became a bit more conscious, if that makes any sense. I had to keep fighting to make sure that I kept the story where I wanted it to be. If the characters would drag me to a certain place, I'll be like, okay, this is where I'm going. This is what I want to say. The story could have gone in a different direction. So I think that's really what made it very fun. And then it was deeper than Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. With Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad, the short stories they're fun. With Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow, yes, they're fun, but they were very deep issues that the characters were talking about. And of course, you get the edit process and everything, because I have such a great team, my publishers and everyone, they just are very hands-on. Everybody was so invested in the book, and you could feel the investment from the first day down till the very last day when we had to go to print. I think that's just like the difference. But other than that, I have been incredibly blessed by God. I know that my journey is quite different from might not be everyone's reality. To have a debut that's successful, and then to also have a novel that has a huge level of success in Nigeria and Ghana, it's very stressful because now everybody's saying they don't know what I'm going to write next. Like I said, I thought we're going to see how that goes.
Any Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow, while it is a fun book, it's also quite different from the short story collection. And one of the big things I think, especially in African societies, I also think as a result of globalization, is the idea of body dysmorphia, right? And this performance of desirability. And I suppose the question for us is, why was it important for you to tackle those issues? Because it is quite like you have these women who are suffering or dealing and questioning desirability in many fold. But you also have the main protagonist in the story who's also dealing with body dysphoria. And that body dysphoria seems to be happened from an early age, right? But it also happens in a society where a particular architect of a woman is desired. So I wanted to talk about why it was important for you to tackle, I think, what really is big issues, but also big issues in a very, and I think this is your gift, right? We enter the book thinking, oh, it's going to be something light, fun. And when you are like halfway through the book, you're like, okay, there's nothing light and about this, because
I don't know, and I'm speaking as an African woman, as a Nigerian woman, I don't know any woman in Africa and in Nigeria who has not had their body shape and their body figure chart their part in life to a certain extent. I don't know. Somebody else can differ, but I do, and I've spoken to a lot of women, because in Nigeria, it's right now the crazes have big bombs. So you have women, girls saving up for BBL because they think it's going to save their lives. In South Africa, the girls don't have that problem. But the truth is, it's almost as if you're not as curvy as you're expected to be in SA, then there's something wrong. There's a woman's body in Africa is the topic of conversation. People and they don't even table it well. They just see you and make comments. They may comment on your skin. They may comment on your body. They may comment on you're getting fat, when you lose weight, when you get pregnant, when you lose the baby, when you lose the pregnancy weight, if you don't lose the pregnancy weight. There's always something to say about a woman. And I'm tired of it. Because why? And this is not to take away from the male struggle as well. But women go through, I know the Caucasian women, it's almost, okay, if they don't look like the Kardashians, they have to be skinny. Why do you put me under so much pressure? How about what I bring to the table, which is I'm a good person and I'm kind? Why doesn't that matter to you? Why does it matter if my butt is bigger? Comment on Twitter where some African guys will be like, oh, this footballer is a strong guy because he's dating someone that has a flat ass. Sometimes when I was a lot younger, I used to say to myself, what exactly is in a bum that makes men behave the way they do? I really was like, is there a special kind of fat? So, and then there's so much pressure now with our young girls. It's really sad. People were saying to me they wanted to see Bumbum from when she started to do her butt. Yes, if there is a second book, depends on how popular the book gets. If there is a second book, yes, maybe the journey will explore that. I don't know. That's God's business. But as of this moment, I'm saying to you that it starts from the family. It starts from what you say to your daughters and what you say to your sons, how you expect boys to be so successful at an age that is unrealistic. So I hope that answers your question.
So I think you've touched on something that then segues into our next question. And I think about the generational quest that women have to fulfill these standards of beauty. And I think what's interesting in the book is that you contrast that in different generations. You have your younger women who are, of course, trying to diet, who want the BBL, who want a particular shape. But the older women, we see them bleaching their skin because that's their idea of what beautiful is. It's an interesting contrast to see the ways in which different generations go go on these quests to fulfill these standards of beauty. And I found it very interesting that you decided to do this contrast, right? Because it's two different sides of a coin. You're still reaching for these unrealistic standards of beauty. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why you didn't just focus on younger women and the diet culture and BBLs and body shapes, but also spoke to this culture of skin bleaching and colorism and all the associations that people make with being lighter and being seen to be more beautiful and more desirable.
Yeah, because that's also affecting us as women. You think it's okay to say to a girl that if you were lighter, you'd be a lot finer. What does that even mean? What does that mean? How can you say to someone, if you were darker, you do you not see how they look? There's a popular influencer in Nigeria who said that she got married to her husband, and before they got married, she had started to bleach her skin. She's so fair now because there's no going back. And then there's the damage that you do on the person's psychic because they're like, am I fair enough or can I get fairer? So it was important to discuss all of these things because beauty standards didn't just start now. It started from the times of our mothers and our mothers. The things that were expected. There was a time when tribal mark was what was the beauty standard. What, when, and why is this okay? So it's, aside from the colorism, the fact that you have to mold yourself a certain way so that you can be acceptable to society and hopefully find a husband. It's beyond me. And I thought it was just my generation. So to imagine when I started to write this book and then I realized, doing the research for it and seeing that this has been, and they don't know because you see our generation and, the generation now, they were very conscious. We have the fact that there's a lot of trauma that our parents carry that you don't know that they carry. There's that, but they didn't put a name to it because it didn't seem like colorism. Bleaching to them didn't look like it was colorism. It was just like, let me make my skin better. There was a girl who came for a reading for Bumbum in Nigeria. And she said to me that when she was dating a guy that he had told her he was going to marry her, he literally would say to her that, oh my God, if you were darker. So this girl used to walk every day under the sun to get darker while she was with him. He said to her, my mom likes dark-skinned girls and to marry you, I'd really like for you to. So she used to walk under the sun. And she says every time she thinks about that, there was one that said in the reading that because of how she used to walk and she had a big butt when she was in primary school, she's like Ladu that she developed early. A teacher called her to the staff quarters and asked her to walk the whole of the staff quarters just to shame her. And that gave her a hunchback because she now grew up slouching and hoping that her bum goes in so it's not so obvious. How dare you do that to people? Who are you to make people feel like they're not enough? And those people that do those things, they do it because they almost want you not to notice what is wrong with them. How dare you give somebody a hunchback? Do you know how many chiropractic sections you have to go through, to get over that? Do you know how many back braces you have to wear to correct a bent stature? Do you know what therapy you have to go through to understand that walking under the sun is not okay because you want a guy to marry you? I'm sorry. I get really passionate when I'm talking about this.
I think deeply for me, what Only Big Bum Bums Matter Tomorrow does is to speak about the question of desirability. What lens are we going to go through in order for us to be desired? And even if it doesn't culminate to marriage, to family, but there are certain things in which we're changing inherently who we are in order for us to be accepted with society as a whole, right? Because sometimes it's not even about marrying a particular person, it's about looking attractive to everybody in the society. One of the really, I think, heartbreaking things that the book does, it speaks about sexual assault and rape culture, right? And really, that's brutal because we know that this is something that's pervasive in society. But the question is, what does it mean to make sense of your body, right, after it has been violated? Because what it does, it also takes away your ability to see yourself in a particular way, right? And I wanted to speak about why it was important for you to speak about sexual assault and rape culture, but all in relation to what it does to the person who's been violated rather than in relation to the act itself.
Because I don't know any woman that has not been sexually harassed in some way. I don't know anyone. And I speak very boldly to say that every woman on this earth has gone through some sort of sexual harassment, whether physical, whether emotional, whether with words, whether with eyes. So when people say to me that I write about things that are trigger heavy, guess what? I will stop writing about them when they stop happening. But until that's not the reality of women, I'm sorry, that's what we're going to be. I'm not saying now, this doesn't mean I don't think that guys are sexually harassed. If you speak to a lot of guys, there's a particular guy who wrote to me after Bumbum came out and said, you talk about women and their issues. I want to let you know that I was abused as well. And I know that's something. He was abused by his cousin, actually, a male cousin. The thing is, for us as women, rape happens in different forms. I remember during the edit of this book, everybody kept saying, put rape in it, put the word rape. And I said, no, I'm not going to use the word rape. If you notice, all through, there was nothing about rape. It was just connoted. And it was intentional because there are times when you're not even sure if you were raped. There are times when you say to yourself, I don't even know if I want to acknowledge that my body was defiled. Hassana had some sort of issues with her body. She was really beautiful, but her boobs were not so big, and she had issues with her body as well. So for that to have happened to her from somebody who said he liked her, and it happened while his mother was in the house, please help me put that math together. Women are supposed to make women feel safe. So when I'm in your house and your mother is there, I do not think that something like that is going to happen to me. So it was very important to write it that way because I think some girls don't know. Like they will say, so the thing about writing is what has happened with me is a lot of people now feel very comfortable sharing their stories with me. There was a babe who told me she's not sure if she was raped, but when she had narrated the experience, I said, babe, you were actually raped. And then she started to get upset. She was like, she didn't think it was rape because the way he came off. And then some people, after they've done that to you, they will now gaslight the hell out of you. And be like, you asked for it, you wanted it. So Hassana, she has a lot of trauma she's carrying that she hasn't worked out because she's not sure what happened to her. And she got lucky. She met somebody who loved everything about her. So that made the pain easier to forget. Abuse comes in different form. So I don't want anybody to feel like the abuse is lesser than the other one. Abuse is abuse, whether it's small or like a sin. The Bible says sin is sin. Abuse is abuse.
Mm. So I think that something that stood out for me a lot in the book was around family and how people make meaning of family. And I think that's particularly important because I think of chosen family and the issues around paternity. So when you think of the book and you think about how Tito chooses Laduna as his child, right? And when you think about the obsession that a lot of men have with paternity and progeny and the like, it's a very striking choice that he's made, right? And I wanted to speak a little bit about the meaning of family and why you felt that it was important for Tito to choose Laduna as his child, despite the circumstances of her conception and birth.
We're taking a short break. We're taking a short break.
I think that there is something really wrong with people that can't love children that are not theirs. I'm just going to be very blunt about that. I don't understand that thing where you marry a man that has kids and you can't love the children because they didn't come from you. I don't understand why you would have people in your house that are living with you because you're economically empowered and it is hard for you to treat them like your own kids. I don't understand it. It's such a prevalent culture all over the world. So when you see men that truly love kids, regardless of whether they come from them, they deserve to be celebrated. Tito deserves to be celebrated because family is where it starts from. You know that there's a case that's going on in Nigeria right now of a guy who murdered a girl, Christina. I don't know if you're seeing it online. And then they said to us that he had killed his sister. He had killed his girlfriend. And his parents were like, they don't want to bring it out because they want to manage the situation. They didn't want to lose 2 children. I keep insisting on it that the problems we have start from the family. Because the kind of child you have, the tendencies your child has, and you know that the best thing to do, I'm a Christian, so I'm always going to go from the Christ-like view of it. The Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. You know you should have chased that demon out of that child. Now that child has grown and has killed 4 or 5 people. Like the family is the first part of everything. We have to pay attention to family. You have no other option. The moment you decide to be a parent, you have to raise your children well. And then the ones that are not to blame for how they are born, once you find yourself in their taking care of them, please treat them well. Don't say because this child is not yours, then you go to your actual children will shop at Gucci. Then you will now take the son that is not yours to go and shop at Primark. So when that child now grows up and becomes successful, because usually children that are deprived, God is nice to them. They come out and they become so successful. They remember the things you did to them when they were living in your house. When you could have treated all of them the same, give them the same food, give them the same house chores. So everybody grows up and they don't know who is who. You see how people are even, their conversations in the literary society that Tito preferred Ladu to even Témì, his own child. Which is not true because he loved both of them equally. But because Tito is such a good person and he's such a good man, which is what we don't see often in the society, which is why I'm hoping that when people pick this book, they can see what a man ought to be like, what a father figure should be like in a house. So they can emulate it, because 24 started the whole idea of we can have a Black president. Let's hope Bumbum teaches people that we can have a house where men are kind to children that are not theirs as well. Women too can take the same thing. This thing that people do. So my driver was sharing a story with me when he was taking me to the airport of how he grew up with his uncle, and the woman that married his uncle, before she married him, she was so kind to him. I think the girl was just acting. She was doing the film. The moment she got into the house, she became a different person. Made sure that the uncle chased, like she frustrated the guy, left the house, and then abandoned all the plans that the uncle had for him. And the uncle, because he wanted a home that was peaceful, decided to go with his wife and what the wife wanted. The truth is, it starts from the family. Let your children be good people. When your child has traits of something that could be a psychopath, please call that out. Don't just sit and be like, oh, it's my son, I have to shield him. Don't shield madness. Because what happens, it goes to this. When your daughter is showing signs of being a wicked person, call her out and say, be kind to people. Don't speak to the driver anyhow. Don't speak to the maid anyhow. Don't make people, yes, sometimes staff can be a bit, maybe they cross a boundary. Call them out and say, I'm not comfortable with this thing. But almost immediately, let them know that you see them as human beings, because nobody is to blame for where they are in life. George Orwell in Animals Farm says, we're not born equal. That's not our fault. Some people are privileged, some people are not, but don't make them feel somehow. So that the person is an orphan or the person is a child that came to you, don't make them feel inappropriate and inadequate, because when they become successful, they carry that thing in them too. They carry that thing of, you were wicked to me and I'm going to be wicked to people as well. So the cycle of trauma continues, which is not supposed to be. So that's why it was very important to paint it this way, because I'm so tired of how people treat children. Children that don't have a reason, they are not to blame for why they are where they are. They are not to blame for how they were born. They are not to blame. They didn't sit down. When 2 people have sex, aeroplane is not coming out of it. It's not balloon. It's children that will come out if you get pregnant. So prepare for it. And if that child is not able to be taken care of by you, if you adopt a child, be nice. If a child is given to you, don't turn the child to a house help because her parents give her to you in the village. Yes, let her do the house chores, but give her education as well and treat her well. Let her remember that she grew up well. She grew up loved. So yeah, that's why Tito is very important to me, because a lot of people don't know how to be kind, even as parents.
I'm sorry. You're telling the truth, but it's a Nigerian way. Like, stop being wicked. That's it.
Oh my God.
Sometimes that's all it is. It's just, I was having this conversation with a friend about how we've started to intellectualize things that don't require intellectualization. Even this, there's this idleness that people do on social media that they want to hide as like intellectual critique. That you're just being idly and petty, but you want to intellectualize it. And some things don't require intellectualization. Stop being wicked. That's really all you need to do. Stop being wicked. Stop it. Just stop it. Then you'll be fine. That's all you need to do.
don't be so angry with how life is treated. Because the thing about life is, it's up and down. It favors you today doesn't mean it will favor you tomorrow. So please humble yourself. Don't think the world is about you. I always tell people, like, I'll meet people and they're like, oh, you're Damilare Kuku. I'm like, it could have been anybody. Let's just be very clear. God could have used anybody else to write these 2 books. That he used me was pitying me and saw that my life was going a different journey and he just wanted to help me. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, when you want to introduce me, please remember that I am one of the most successful authors in Africa. What does that bring to the table? Like, how does that help the price of plantain and rice in the world? It could be anybody and anybody else. My mom will always say to me that the world is not about you. So when people meet you, let them experience you in a certain way. People are so wicked now. It's so exhausting dealing with people because I'm like, I don't even know the level of wickedness you're going to bring to the table because I don't know how deep your wickedness is.
No, I'm laughing again. Humor is we know these things to be true, right? And so we laugh because we're like, yeah, honestly, stop being wicked. That's it, right? One thing I really enjoyed about both Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad and Big Bumbum is this thing that people often believe to be taboo, right? Which is sexual attraction, but also queerness and like biphobia and queerphobia in African societies, right? And I really, Auntie Ju is my girl, right? Like she's a bit problematic, but I love her to bits. And I wanted to speak about that.
Just a bit problematic.
It's a problem. I wanted to speak about why it was important for you to speak about bisexuality, but also homophobia and queerphobia in Nigerian societies particularly. And that tussle that you have to accept that you have a... I love the way in which it happened. I just go to the hair salon in order to smell her. It was titillating to be like, I'm just going there just because I want to be in her presence. So it's not sexual attraction in a lusty type of way, but it's also in actually my body has a visceral reaction to the presence of this woman. So why was it important for you to speak about that?
Because love comes in every form. And when you're lonely, you would accept love in whatever way it comes to you. Juma is one of the loneliest characters in the book. And she was looking for love. She wanted her sister to follow her to school. Sister couldn't go because she didn't know that sister had dyslexia. She found a man she fell in love with who started to abuse her. And she beat him back, which I thought was... that part gave me so much joy. The beating of the husband back when he started to beat her. And then falling in love with her.
That was so good. I was like, yes. She's like, no, I'm tired.
You think you're just going to hit me and get away with it? Please. And she fell in love with... You see, the thing about love, and I think we all know because I hope all of us on this call have fallen in love at some point. You can't really describe it. You love the way the person smells. You literally will smell... If your boyfriend walks over here, you're like, my boyfriend has passed this place. Or somebody's wearing my boyfriend's perfume. Or maybe you're like, oh, you speak like my... There's something about when you love people, you carry them with you. And that's what love is. You carry who you love, whether as your sister or your brother or your boyfriend or your husband or whatever the situation may be. With Juma is one of the most... I love Juma. No, I don't have a favorite character, but Juma is someone I wrote with a lot of delicacy because I wanted people to understand that loneliness happens to all of us. And when we find people who love us, we will take it as it comes. She was just a lonely character. Yes, she was angry. Yes, she was judgmental. But at the core of it, Juma was lonely. And it was very important to write about love. I say to people that we can't help who we love. Because when people show us kindness, when people show us acceptance, and when people are allowing us to remove everything that we wear as mask, we fall for them. That's why sometimes you see women will say to you that I didn't love my husband at first. But because the husband loved her so much and then they stay in the marriage, you find that as they get older, she loves him more than he loved her because now she starts to realize that this is the person who allowed me to be who I am and who loved me even when I didn't love him. That's why I always tell people that I saw someone on one of these review sites saying, This author is always talking about God. I'm so over it. Can you just stick to the literary conversations? And I just want to say to that person, if she listens to this podcast, when somebody saves me from myself, when somebody saves my life, when someone turns my story around, when someone loves me the way God has loved me, then I'll talk about them. Until that moment, you don't have to listen and you don't have to deal with. Once you say it's about me, just you can change the topic, because it's always going to be about God over here, because God loves me. And I've never seen that kind of love before. So we can just get that over. So yeah, that's the thing. Love makes you do things. And when you love someone, you love them completely. And love comes in every form. Let's stop being pretentious and say love comes in one way. Love comes in different forms. And that's why I wanted to talk about it.
I think it's safe to say, Damilare, that you're a lover girl, right? Just from this conversation. But I want to talk about some of the characters because, sister, we are going to have to fight, you and me, okay? You are going to have to fight. Let's talk about Témì. Oof. Témì is easily one of the most frustrating, lovable, anger-inducing characters in the book. Do you know what I mean? Like, she takes you through every emotion that you can possibly feel. And I guess it's just the fullness of the human experience. But there's a few things around Témì that I found particularly interesting. Témì is almost like the glass child, right? So the concept of the glass child is there's often a child in the family that has some issues or problems, and then there's the child who maybe doesn't have all those things and so gets shoved to the side and does the most for the least a lot of the time. And so Témì gets relegated to this role of almost being forgotten. And I think in some way that influences the ways in which Témì wants to approach the bum conversation. To feel like you've always been relegated, whether it's in your family, whether it's in your life, you've always been relegated to the periphery of conversation or the periphery of people's imagination. And this is why you then want to make the decisions around your body and the BBL and the like. And so I wanted us to talk a little bit about Témì and the ways in which her family dynamic may have influenced her decision to get this BBL, but also to just move in the way that she does as a person.
And just to add to that, I also think the way society is constructed, right? The women in Témì's family were, let's call it, quintessentially beautiful. They had big bums, right? And it felt like Témì was wanting to be like the people in her family and feeling like an outsider and feeling that through this BBL, she might finally be accepted in this
family. So with Témì, I love Témì so much because she's a combination of a lot of people that I've met in my life. I think you can love a child and maybe not love them the right way, if that makes any sense, because she comes from a really good family. They loved her, they tried their best, which is why you see that everyone reacted the way they did, because they didn't understand where the decision was coming from. Témì represents the child who decides that maybe if she does what society wants, there will be and there are a lot of children that are like that. Maybe if I fix my teeth, maybe if I go abroad and get an education and come back with an accent. She's such a complex character, but yet so simple, because it's all she's looking for, which is like Juma, is love. That's it. But she's looking for acceptance, and she just wants to be able to go a day without somebody saying something about her body. She lost all her friends within a period of time and then lost her dad. So there was so much tragedy that happened to her. Even though her parents loved her and they did their best, sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes you will do your best by a child and the child will still come out the way they are. Tito did his best with this kid. Listening to you and listening to people's reviews, I realized that maybe she did feel ostracized, but I thought she was loved properly. But maybe Ladun was more loved than Témì, but I don't think that's the case with both parents. I think they loved both their children equally, but there's also the fact that perhaps they were compensated a bit more with Ladun because they didn't want her to feel left out, and they just thought Témì would be fine. So it's that syndrome. There's the firstborn syndrome, the secondborn syndrome, there's the lastborn syndrome. There are a lot of things. You can talk to someone and realize, okay, you could probably be a firstborn because the way they take over things and the way they handle things. Life just happened. The mother, it's not like she's a bad mom. she probably just missed all those cues, all those things when people were saying stuff about her body, and she didn't see how Témì was reacting. And Témì too is also so not her fault that she decided to make this decision. She just wants society to be kind to her. So sometimes life just happens. That's the whole point of Témì, is what life looks like when you least expect it. Because Ladun, which I don't know why she was shocked that her sister decided to fix her bum, because that one left the house for 5 years. So I don't know why you would think you will come back to the same sister. How can you think your sister, you've not seen her for 5 years and you think you will meet the same person? I don't understand. People will change. So Témì is such a special and precious character to me. And she's an enigma as well, because even me, I try to understand. I'll pick up the book. I'm like, maybe there's a part of her I didn't see when I was writing that I don't understand. But and then she was also very opinionated. She could say what she wanted and she was quite confident. But for a confident child, she lacked a lot, which is sad. So
I think that she's also just an interesting example of somebody making their way through certain things to discover themselves, because you see her a lot initially in the book, because she's so desires to be likable that she's often agreeable to the point of just sacrificing herself. But there's this big confrontation at the end of the book where she tells people about themselves. And it's particularly interesting because I think had it been Ladin telling them about themselves, they would have been okay with it. But to have Témì be the one who calls them out almost makes everyone in the room shocked. They just cannot believe that Témì is the one telling them about themselves in the way that she is. And for me, the choice to get the cosmetic surgery is like, whatever. But to see her come into her own in that way, I think is one of the bravest things that an African woman can do, is to tell the woman in your life, no.
yeah, I agree. And Eunice, so that ending, I love it so much because first of all, in that ending, she's calling all of them out and saying, can you answer why we are where we are? And none of them could answer. Did you see? Everybody just kept her aloof and and then they said she should go ahead, which was sad.
So basically, yeah, you know what, my dear? You have us. Do what you need to do. We'll support you because we can't answer you.
Yeah. Which is what I think African parents do. They avoid the heavy conversations. Every parent excelled in school. So you're telling me that as they all were in school, they all came first? Nobody failed? All the parents, they all had perfect. When they want to tell you how their childhood is, they don't ever say, oh, and then this happened to me. No, everybody seems to have had this perfect story, which is now puts pressure on the child to be perfect. Instead of saying to your child that, hey, listen, when you're older, hey, I don't want you to make this mistake. When I was a certain age, I got pregnant and I aborted it. So keep out for that. Keep an eye for that, because that could be something you need to deal with. See? You see how that...
We speak about Témì and her body issues, but we also know that Ladun had her own body issues, right? And some parts of the book you write, Ladun in Ladun's voice, I've always had a love-hate relationship with my body. Yes, I love that it was healthy, but I hated that it developed too early, making me the center of unwanted attention. And for me, I wanted to speak a little bit about Ladun. I won't lie, she has a very soft space in my heart. She's deeply problematic, but I love my girl. And I wanted to just be like, Ish, could she not have had it easier though?
I wish. Isn't that what we're saying? You know, the people that have the most difficult time, these people that are called the ones that are so beautiful. If you want to see people that are lonely, go and speak to those people that are really extraordinarily gorgeous, the things they go through. Speak to developed early, the things she went through. It's a gift and a curse. It's not a blessing all through. Ladu wanted to just be left alone. And yet, somehow, somewhere, that was the one thing she did not get. So she was fine. She would have liked to be lonely, just to be by herself. But she never got that choice. Because if a man wasn't perching around her, she had someone who was trying to... It was just always something. So, funny enough, I didn't expect this reaction with Ladun. I thought people would just gloss over her. But she has a fan base. if we have book clubs, you speak with them, everybody's like, oh, Ladu is my girl. And the people that hate her, they hate her. And they would lay strong points as to why they think she is the... And I think those people that don't like her, those people that have had Ladus as their sisters. So, so have had a Lado as their sister, the hatred is amazing. The things that people say to me when they are talking about Lado, I'm like, wow, I didn't even think that far. She's someone I really...
I think the soft spot for me about Latin is just about the potency of secrets, right? And the potency of shame, right? These secrets basically ruin Ladun's life, right? They ruin her chance at love. But I wanted to speak about that, right? This idea of secrets and shame, right? And what it does to children. Because ultimately, like, her life changes and the dynamic she has with both her parents change as a result of this secret coming out.
Yeah, so she makes decisions that may have ruined her life, because I don't know how she plans to escape that guy that she's with. That's the part I don't know how you think you can escape guys like that. You can't escape people like that. So I find it very funny to see how she plans to do it. Now, with the secrets thing, like I said, you see this thing they do with children. You see a man that is sexually harassing a child and will tell her, like, if she tells her mom, it will take all the money away from the family. So this child, because she doesn't know better, will think, let me keep quiet and never say anything because I want us to have this perfect family, because that's what the man has said to her. You must never tell your mom, or you must never. So that secrets kill us. They kill us as human beings. That's why I'm always like, yes, it's important to have your own things that you hold dear to yourself. But when things that are traumatic happen to you, speak out. Let it no longer be your burden. It's not your fault that life happened to you. So why are you carrying this thing? Why are you carrying this enormous weight that is only meant to be for Jesus Christ, who has died on the cross, and not... Because it's too much. It's a lot that we're carrying. And then maybe the reason why they don't share the secrets is because you also have a situation whereby people start to judge. I let the entire conversation finish, and I said, it's such a disappointing thing for you to have said this, because as they slept with her, did you know this about her when you looked at her? She said no. And I'm like, so what does that have to do with who she is? Do you know the reasons that led to that? Do you know who she is? Do you know what her childhood is? Do you know whether she grew up wanting love? Why is this was? And then does it take away from her prowess as a human being and what we're talking about that she can bring to the table? No. So why do we care who has slept with her? Why do I care who's going to sleep with her after I finish this conversation with you? So you see, that's why people keep that secret, because they don't want it to come out, because they know that it's going to be, you're going to keep looking at me like, I'm going to go to a biblical reference when Jesus was like, throw the first stone if you know you're without sin. Everyone has secrets. So when you hear somebody's secrets, take it in, don't be judgmental, so that they can open up more. Ladu can't tell her family what she's going. How's she going to tell her family the kind of man she's engaged to when they've not finished talking about how her father was not her father for nearly 20 years? The problems are many, and you people want me to solve everything. I don't know how.
I want to talk about Mami while we just have some time, because I think she's such an interesting character. I think often we don't think of our mothers as human beings. And it's interesting for me because I am the mother of 2 boys, right? I hope that my children will think of me as a human being with my own flaws, my own insecurities, my own pain, but also that they'll be able to navigate our relationship with humanity, right? Because I think for a lot of people, it's a stumbling block to think of your parents as human beings. And I think of Mami particularly because she has this learning disability that completely changes the trajectory of her life. It makes the world so much smaller for her, but it also means a particular thing for how she navigates the world and her relationships with people. I think she often wants to compensate a lot because she has this insecurity about having a learning disability. And I wanted us to speak a little bit about what it means to be a woman of Mami's age and stature and familial relationships, and to have a learning disability that changes completely what your life can look like.
First of all, I'm really sorry for anyone out there who has been through what Hasana has been through. To have a learning disability is not a joke. And to not know that you have. So you see, with our generation, we've come into a generation that knows that things are wrong with us. They grew up not knowing. She probably just thought she wasn't eating something right or something. She didn't know it was dyslexia. And she got lucky. The funny part is she ended up with a professor. Not everybody gets that lucky. It was intentional to write it that way because I wanted people to understand that your story might start out bad. Doesn't mean it's going to end up bad. Life was fair. She had 2 kids. She had a loving marriage. There are a lot of issues that we have in Africa that we don't know the names of it yet. And we think it's our flaw. They are actual issues that they are disorders that could be treated or that could be paid attention to. So it's not your fault that you're not very good at school. You might just be good at something else. It's not your fault that you can't cook or whatever, even though you've tried many times. Maybe you are just meant to be an architect. So it's just, there's so many things that are disorders in our society, but we would hide them under you're not a normal person. This is how a normal person should look. A normal person should want to go to school. A normal person should understand school. A normal person should finish school and then go on to marry. And then from marriage, give birth to children. And then from children, just live happily ever after. No, your journey has bumps. And even if you leave that journey, like you just said, you're a mom. You want your children to see that you're normal. You can still have moments where you are off the cuff. To give birth is not easy. It's not, and to do it twice, my God. Like, your body is not yours, your life is not yours. The thing you want your kids to always remember is even though my mom had her thing, she always showed up, she loved me, and she did her best. That's the best compliment people can give you. It's like my mother did her best, and I know that because if she wasn't my mom, I would have liked her as a human being. So it was just important to show Hasana that way because I wanted people to see that you can have disabilities. Maybe what your problem is a disability. Stop thinking there's something wrong with you because you're slow or because you can't grasp things the way people grasp it. Just because you're not doing the thing that people are supposed to do because you don't have a car when your friends have cars. There's nothing wrong with you. What is yours? Your journey in life, you will get to it when you ought to get to it. But that's the thing. I have an aunt that will say to me that you're all running races, but you will get to a point where all of you will get to where you're supposed to get to. And then everybody levels up. The moment you are doing the right thing, you wake up and you say to yourself, today I'm going to do my best to be a better version of myself. And you just show up for yourself, you'll be fine. And so your disabilities and all those things you think can make you less might eventually play to your own favor. So that's why it was very important to write her that way. Because I think I grew up with people seeing disability as, and they didn't even know they had disabilities. It's when you think back, you realize, oh, this person had that, and this person had this, and they didn't know. Yeah.
I want to close off on a beautiful note. I think Odi Big Bumbums is a wonderful book, but I wanted to speak about the professor just a little bit. For me, I was like, damn, I hope really, truly there are people like the professor in the world. There is just a tenderness with which he carried Hasana, teaching her how to read, just showing Hasana that even with the rejection that the world gave her, she is beautiful, right? And even the way in which the sexual assault happened, he was just such a cushion, right? A soft landing. I wanted to speak a little bit about Tito, because for me, I just was like, oh, I hope a man like this exists in the world. Maybe I hope to meet him and to share the rest of my life with him. I wanted to speak about that, why it was important for you to speak about love and its enduring, wonderful qualities.
Yeah, Tito is a real life character. It's based off someone I actually know in my life. I didn't even take the name too far. I just changed 2 names out of it so that when he reads it, he knows it is him. Like his first name starts with T as well. There are people like Tito. And it makes me sad because eventually I know one day he's going to die. I don't think I'll ever be ready for that. And it was important to write Tito the way it was because I didn't think people like that existed until I met someone like that. And I have met men that are like Tito maybe 4 or 5 times in my life. Yes, I pray and I hope too that I end up with somebody like Tito because that would be sad if I don't end up with someone like Tito. So when you write about people that you love, it's because you want them to live forever. So that's my way of making sure that he lives forever. So that was me. I'm deciding that regardless of when he passes, he lives forever. Books don't die. They travel forever and ever. And that was important.
Damilare, of course, you've seen how much we've enjoyed this book. And this conversation has really been so wonderful because Only Big Bumbums Matter Tomorrow is truly, it has a special place in our hearts, and I hope that it will do fantastic and wonderful things. But thank you again for giving us the opportunity to give you your flowers and say, yeah, Only Big Bumbums Matters Tomorrow is the girl that she thinks she is.
Thank you. I love how supportive you guys are. I just love it. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Damilare, and thank you to the Cheeky Natives. We'll see you on our next episode. We're really looking forward to seeing what this book will do, Damilare, and the important conversations that it will spark. Hopefully, there's a few more people who read this book and feel seen and validated. So thank you so much, Damilare, and we wish you all the best. And we're looking forward to seeing what happens next with this book. Amen. So thank you so much, Cheeky Natives. We'll see you on the next episode of the Cheeky Natives. Don't forget to subscribe to the Cheeky Natives, and please review our podcast. Let everybody know just how much you love the Cheeky Natives. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Cheeky Natives. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate the podcast on all your streaming platforms.